Welcome into the post Gameweek 20 FPL, 3 Winks FPL reactions video. We're here to talk everything Gameweek 20. We've got some different vibes going on the podcast right now. What else is new? But yeah, we see one individual in the cone, a couple other individuals wearing standard hats. But you know, maybe that was out of solidarity. How are we doing, Vibes and Mac?
Vibes really couldn't get much lower right now. I think, as my tweet for this weekend said, whatever, it happens. I'm moving on. So it's about
No, whatever. Who cares? Yeah, that's fair. Mac, how we doing?
I'm middle vibes, I suppose. I've had the same vibes like for half this season. At this point, it's just kind of like, meh, good week, move on.
Yeah,
hope to capture next week.
For sure. Well, I had a stellar week, but it put me back at 1.2, just right at home, balanced. I think my rank over the last like 6 weeks has changed. Like I've gone down like 30K or something. So it's what a roller coaster we ride on. Yeah, interesting that we were going into this week talking about how it was potentially going to be a low scoring week. And I feel like in a way it ended up being that, but so many players had like multi returns and whatnot, and highly owned players that it made it feel like a big week. So
a lot of big hauls from highly owned players, but also like only owned by half the community players.
Yeah, 100%. A lot went down. Sharp, we can start with you. This is right?
Well, it was right until DEFCONs got taken away. So we're down at 50. It took me down to 163K. I mean, whatever. The defense all failed me except for Ruben since he got pulled, which was nice. But like Bruno G, I feel like everyone had, but was still nice. Saka's always fine. Happy Rogers returns, but
by everyone had, you just mean the three of us.
Yeah, well, whatever. I mean, basically,
yeah,
it just makes me, I'm just angry because a lot of my players do feel like, I mean, it's still 21% by those around me, so I would still say relatively highly owned. So It feels like a lot. Anyway, Rogers in for Foden this week ended up working out because we dodged that. Honestly, there were as many big returns as there were. On the flip side of it, the guys that you would count on to return did not return. So that's kind of what balanced it out, I think, when we're looking at the average. I do have to give a shout out. The only thing that I was happy about this week that brought a smile to my face, because it was sure not the Liverpool game, was watching Barry put a nice header in. I mean, it was given to him on a silver platter, but my man certainly delivered. So love that for him. I was really
happy for
pissed. Yeah, really pissed about the Rice on the bench. Still am. Would like Arteta to not be a baby back bitch and just say what his players are doing, but you look at the NFL, and for gambling, for fantasy, for competition perspectives, they have to give specific designations based on percentages to play. You don't act like someone's like dead and limping and can't move his right knee, and then he plays a full 90 or whatever. So whatever.
Arteta's a top tier weirdo. I'll say it. He's playing the psychological games at a higher level than everyone else is.
Also, I just want to take a moment. I understand you're hurting right now, and as the guy who's been in a shit mood for basically the whole season, I have to respect that. But at the same time, it's kind of annoying because you are on a green, and you also got very lucky with a key few individuals, such as Mr. Ruben Diaz, who comes off before City concede, or to your point, like Barry coming in and scoring. So it is funny that you're complaining on a green, but I understand. Right. The bench points are the killer for sure.
First off, not a green. With the DEFCONs taken away, we're down to 163, so that's a 4K loss. You know, that hurts. We don't feel good. It doesn't feel good.
Shut up, 4K. That's so annoying.
Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, I know I got lucky, but I think that's what hurts even more. I left 15 viable points on my bench last week. I left 23 this week, so it's just ass. And then the week before that was Dubravka returning and Verbruggen getting nothing. So,
yeah, for sure. I mean, I think this is incredibly apt then for you to just see this man and how much you hate him. I mean, because to be fair, like,
you know what? Hold on. You know what's great though? Liverpool play him on Thursday this week, and who's going to absolutely kick our ass? So, you know, he owns me. It's fine.
Well, I do think it's funny because last week I was on the same train where I was like, fuck this guy, because I wouldn't have sold Timber before he returned had I known that he was potentially going to play, right? Gabriel, I would have probably brought in similarly had I known that he was going to play. Yeah, it's all just smokes and mirrors with this guy, and he fucking sucks. All right, Mac, you want to take us through yours?
I do. I, by 2 points, am not wearing the plunger. Let's go. Unlike Sharp, I had a peak performance and left 0 points on my bench. So I'm happy with the week. It's just a middling performance. Was it luck or was it skill that I kept Chow when you guys sold him? You guys can decide.
I have him. I got him.
Oh, never mind. Then it was all skill.
See, I thought I was the only one who owned Chow. I didn't know that you had him too. So it's so funny. Neither of us know. We both thought we were the lone wolf with that.
Yeah, I thought I was. Absolutely was dying watching all of these games. I was like, okay, everybody who can hurt me has hurt me. Everybody who I have has also hurt me. Life is pain. FPL is misery. And then somehow I ended up on a green. It's not a big green. I was like 630k last week. I'm actually down to 575k with removal of the Bruno G DEFCONs. But after like 8 weeks of faith, the Newcastle guys have finally paid off. Or Chow specifically, Bruno G's been fine. So pretty happy with the week overall. Like, it's not like a great week when I'm missing some high-scoring, high-owned players like Thiago, who I got rid of for Ekitike. But we move on.
I was going to say that is the one player that fucked all of us. And I think I think I did it a little differently, but we all, for all intents and purposes, went Thiago to Ekitike. So him not playing is a real sucker punch to the gonads for sure. That being said, well, I don't know where you guys are at on selling him or not. Well, I suppose we'll get there, but it's an interesting case with Ekitike because it does sound like he's probably going to be back for the next game. So that's just annoying.
I'm not even sure I'm up to speed on why he didn't
This is
play.
Great. I just read this. It's awesome.
Yeah, they said it's like hamstring tightness, basically.
No, it didn't happen because he traveled with them and everything. So it didn't happen until they were like on the bus or wherever they were mid-travel. Basically, he's a little bitch. He had a delayed onset muscle soreness. My dude just needed to stretch.
Who's your most hated injury player of the year? Is it Ekitike or Palmer?
It's not Palmer for me because I never had him, so there was no emotional.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know if it's injury related, but I just fucking hate Palmer all the way around. So like the dude hadn't scored an open play goal since like January, and everyone's like, "Fuck yeah, like he's the man. We need him on our team." And so I was
he came back for the Club World Cup, and he was fine then.
Did we all three have him to start the year?
Dude's ass.
I can't remember.
I think we might have. I definitely
was so hurt by the Forest players at the beginning of the year and the fucking Aston Villa players for those first 4 games that I don't even remember if I had them. It's all just blacked out in my mind.
The amount of times we heard Villa boys over the first 5 game weeks.
And look who was right just a little early. The Villa boys are back, baby.
Yeah. It might be Villa boys time. I mean, even Watkins is getting in on the action.
Yeah. And you had I woke
up to see that Rodgers returned, and I tweeted like "Good morning" to those who celebrate Rodgers returns, and I did not realize it would be the highlight of my entire Saturday. It was just all downhill from there. Like every game that was played for the rest of the day punished me, and I was like, "Oh, all right, this game hurts."
It is also like specifically right now, it feels like the triple ups. Like the teams that you're really invested in are Arsenal and City at the current moment. So those are just the big games, and it really depends on like those can swing so hard one way or the other. And there's been a lot of injuries. There's been late clean sheet wipes. There's been blanks. So those have been especially painful. And either you're feeling on a super high after those games or a super low. And I've experienced both in back-to-back weeks. All right. Yeah. Moving on to mine. I meant to go look at this back. This is a week where even the players that blanked, I guess I had quite a few players blank. So Haaland, Foden, Dorgu, and Raya all blanked, but definitely got in on some of the hauls with Chow, Rice, Bruno G, and Cunha, and then Gabriel as well. So my hit this week was to do Richards to Gabriel and then Wilson out for Garner. So almost barely a net positive on that actually because Wilson scored. But nice to have Gabriel in, I suppose. The clean sheet wipe, but then he turns it into a goal. Wild that I got DEFCONs from a forward. That's definitely a new thing that I've never seen. And then my dilemmas going into the week were whether to start Rice or Garner actually at the time. And I think unlike typically with a defender, like we've talked about this of do you bench the player, do you not, if they're uncertain. Typically with a defender, I assume like they're either going to play 90 or they're not. And that's not always true, obviously, but I'm a little bit more confident in that. Rice, I was definitely worried about coming in for a cameo or something. And obviously his value, especially as a DEFCON guy, is to play that full 90. That being said, the reason I ended up starting him was just because I felt like the Bournemouth fixture was too appetizing if he was to start. Just because he's on corners and we were talking about how bad they are at set pieces. So I ended up going for it because I was like, Garner's not going to do shit. So obviously I ended up getting both of them and probably would have had him either way. And then the other dilemma was Thiaw versus O'Reilly. And yeah, same point as Mac, I suppose. It was like, boy, they don't keep cleans at all. They really don't. But my thought process was really that City was playing Chelsea and Chelsea just have a really good attack. So it felt like an opportunity to take it, but that was a coin flip, to be honest, that I certainly got extra lucky on. So yeah, super exciting week. Felt good to get some returns, but again, we are just back to 1.2. So it went from I'm having a disastrous season to I'm having a less disastrous season. So exciting stuff to show the leaderboard. You can see that on mine. I kind of came back to where I've been flatlining for the most part from YouTube. Pretty grayish, greenish, reddish arrows. And then the points totals. Look at that. Made up some ground. I'm only 70 points back a sharp. So
I was minus 39 last week. So I was minus 41. I was minus 39 2 weeks ago. So it's the same for me.
It's just in up and down, up and down. Yeah. So what a week.
Going back to the ranks conversation for a second, Luke, when you were saying sharp, it's really annoying that you got a small red arrow. It reminded me of this.
100%. Yeah.
No. Honestly, once I saw those graphs, I'm feeling a little better. So thanks.
Well, that's why I'm saying you're like, well, everyone has Bruno G. Like he's a differential, but you're like, but everyone, meaning Mac and I, have Bruno G. Yeah, we stay competitive. We stay petty on this pod, and that's, I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't know where exactly to go first. Obviously, the City Chelsea game is fresh on my mind because that just happened. Do you guys want to touch on that one at all?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the big conversation on this one is probably just that Chelsea weren't awful and City didn't facilitate a lot to Holland. Those are probably the two things that people actually care about on this game.
I mean, it depends on how Chelsea's going to play because that first half was so bad. Like they were basically just like, hey, come score. Like do whatever you want to us.
They were playing the Burnley style of ball.
And it was disgusting. So they did obviously inspire a little bit over half, but I mean, you see the giant jump is just Enzo.
Well, and it's a 94th minute goal or 90 plus 4 minute goal or something like that.
I'm nervous. I'm still nervous, I guess. So I'm paying attention next week for sure.
Yeah, I think what is your guys' takeaway here? So obviously first half their game plan was counter-attacking ball, and then after City scored second half they come out with something a little different, but it seemed like they got more possession but not necessarily more like high quality chances. Do we think this is a wait and see type situation? We lost Maresca, we're just trying to figure things out. We're playing City, so we had a specific game plan, or do you think this is the natural new manager defensive bump style change?
They haven't brought in a new manager yet, right?
Right. I just mean no Maresca. That's really all I mean.
No, I think that if I was I don't even know who took over. Whoever was in the dugout for that.
It was their
I would have just been
youth coach.
Do nothing, change nothing, play the way we know how. I don't think you're getting a regime change yet. I think the hope for Chelsea in the future is that it doesn't change too much because theoretically the guy that's the front runner, Ross Senior, is in the Blue Co Chelsea system. So they own Strasbourg and they hired him to play similarly to Maresca, but only time will tell. We have no idea on that.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just especially relevant. Obviously, we've all talked about the fixture swings as they start in 22. And I was talking to Mac off air beforehand. The fixtures do start in 22 with Brentford and Palace, but it's really 24 where it's it feels like having at least one and probably more than one Chelsea player is a necessity because it goes West Ham, Wolves, Leeds, Burnley, 4 straight. So that's definitely the time period that by then we'd like to know which ones to get. And I think you could argue to go for the defensive assets. Probably what do they have in the next 2? Yeah, next week starting at Fulham. Like you could probably invest defensively right now. Actually, I mean, you could invest in general right now. So I don't know if I would assume that this week puts you guys off that a little bit. Is that accurate to say? Or do you think it's still worth going for?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of where I immediately went with my answer when I looked at this is I'm not going to do it yet. I'm going to wait to see what happens next week. And also because there's just more pressing needs for next week that you needed to have last week. And if you didn't have it, you absolutely need to go forward, like Gabriel. So I'm using my transfers to get to him before I go somewhere else.
Yeah. It is also surprising that considering how defensively they played this game, only 2 players hit DEFCONs, and those were Enzo and Chalobah. Enzo continues to be a pretty solid value pick, but it's a weird world with Palmer coming back. And then I think Chalobah is the one where it's like, you could really make an argument to get him in at any point. He's the second highest scoring player or defender behind Gabriel.
Yeah, he's just very attacking. I guess it's the problem with him. You don't know if they're going to keep cleans and how much his attacking is going to change. The problem is this could have happened a worse time, I guess, is the real thing. We just all want to like clarity on these Chelsea assets before we pick any of them up. And sort of the same conversation we've been having all season. Like, yes, they're scoring, but nobody is predictably scoring. Like, there's no talisman. The goals are spread out. And somehow they're eking away these wins, and you just don't know where they're coming from.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like the other one to talk about that feels extra relevant just because of all of our investment in them is probably the Arsenal game. Obviously, they play Bournemouth. Let me remove this and add this. They play Bournemouth. Bournemouth is one of those, like, I think Bournemouth has replaced Spurs of last year or 2 years ago under Ange of like kind of the basketball team where it feels like at least at this point in the season, it's like going to be goal scoring on both ends. In this game, obviously.
Like great way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah. This game obviously like turned in that way. You have highly owned assets or relatively highly owned assets in Gabriel and Rice returning from the Arsenal side. I forget, did Semenyo return at all? Did he get an assist or something?
Yeah. Yeah. He had an assist.
Yeah. Classic. So he continues to be a thorn in our side, but yeah, I think a couple of things here. Obviously, the dilemmas are how much of a necessity is Gabriel? We touched on that last week. Is Saka worth the money over Rice? And so what's your triple up for Arsenal? And then on the Bournemouth side, I feel like it's looking at players like a Senesi or something. I think attacking wise, it's going to be interesting. It's a wait and see probably once Semenyo leaves. But somebody like a Senesi who's still, I think, the top DEFCONer in the game, similar to like a Tark that you guys have of these really good DEFCONers who are on defenses that in theory aren't that great. I say that because Everton have kept a lot of cleans recently. So it's, you can make your arguments either way. But I find that interesting right now. I feel like you're either in a place of, are we going to get multiple Arsenal defenders? Are you going to, back that? Maybe you get a City defender, maybe a Chelsea defender, or do you go for like the high DEFCONing guys, your Andersons, your Tarks, your Lacroix of the world, I suppose, like all those types of guys.
Where I'm leading on this is like this season, the top defenders are the guys who are scoring and keeping clean sheets, right? It's kind of the standard defensive formula. They get some bonus or some DEFCONs, and those like a nice little pick me up. But historically, it was always wing backs or fullbacks who were the priority defenders in FPL because they scored and then they would get clean sheets. And that's a haul. So that hasn't changed. I think the conversation has mostly changed on this DEFCON thing. And I think you still are looking for the guys who, for like maybe the next tier down of defenders who are capable of getting DEFCONs and capable of getting clean sheets. But I don't think that for like those mid-tier defenders, DEFCONs is enough to sway the needle. Because if you're conceding 2 every game and then you get DEFCONs, you're not like coming up with a high floor. And I don't know what Senesi's returns have looked like over the last couple of weeks, but I think that the difference in conversation between the Everton guys and the Senesis is that, as you said, Bournemouth are playing basketball, whereas Everton are keeping like generally 1 goal.
Yeah.
2 goals. Although did they concede like 4 today against Newcastle? But
yeah, I think it was 3. But yeah, the point's the same.
and I think that the DEFCONs really, really help those low tier guys, those Andersons of the world, who aren't going to keep any clean sheets, but it gives them a path to being a useful asset, but at a much lower ceiling than like DEFCONs is the main point driver. I don't know if that made any sense. It's just I think that DEFCONs matter in importance more the lower you go down the bench.
And maybe the way to say it is that like a DEFCON player, it's more so picking a player from a given team and then of those players picking the DEFCON player from that team as opposed to picking specifically a DEFCON player. But I think it's an interesting conversation or like debate though, because then if you're, as we've been looking at who are the top scoring defenders and you see Tark at 5, right? So, and Keane at 8, and you have obviously the Palace guys are in that. Even players like Lacroix and well, I guess Munoz has returned a little bit, but Lacroix probably hasn't had very many attacking returns, and he's still in that like top 10 conversation.
But Palace just keep clean sheets, and that, or they have been historically. Like the first half of the season, that was their thing. These 100%. Everton guys don't keep as many clean sheets, but they get a lot of DEFCONs. Senesi at the first half of the season was just getting a ton of DEFCONs and keeping clean sheets. So if one of those goes away, the conversation around these players changes. I think you're right. Like try to get the guy who has almost bonus point potential through DEFCONs on the team, but you have to still pick the team ultimately that's getting more clean sheets.
Yeah. Sharp, all good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not looking at anyone from Bournemouth to go back to the original question.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
for sure.
No,
I think. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. I mean, you just want to target the best defenders, and I feel like they've made themselves relatively clear. The best defenses are who they are, and at this point, the points are up there. So, as long as you don't see anything changing, like a manager change, just go with the guys that are scoring.
Yep. All right. So then back on the topic of your Arsenal guys, players like Saka, players like Rice, I think Arsenal are kind of infuriating in this way of a lot of times they're that like 1-0 scoreline team or even like a 2-1 or something, but it's rare that they have a game like this where they score multiple goals. So obviously in this isolated incident, Declan Rice does really well. But even like these charts that Mac pulled together, it still shows how much Saka is the guy in terms of being the more attacking threat. I think the question now is just like price-wise, right? That's what's probably going to drive you to a player like a Declan Rice. And also this outburst that we had from him, we haven't seen from Saka this season. As much as we know he's important and he's attacking and he's always involved, he hasn't actually had like a 3-goal game or like a 2-goal, 1-assist haul or anything like that. So do you think it's like clear at this point that it's Saka to Rice is an easy, don't even think about it move, or is it, is there still some debate to be had? Maybe like if you're a Saka owner, you're kind of the dude digging for gems that are right in front of you.
I mean but Saka's average is still around a 6. If I'm getting 6 points out of someone week to week, I get it's not flashy, but that's the same as someone going 11-2 back and forth. Like,
right.
He's so consistent. I know he's expensive, but for me, I have both of them and I'm going to keep both of them. So my thought is of any of the 4 guys of Timber, Gabriel, or these 2, if any combination of 3 of them I think is the right choice. I think the people who had Araya probably don't want him anymore because of the way these guys are scoring.
And because he's the only one who concedes. you get guys pulled off and he's still on. Yeah.
Yeah. And Calafiori and Saliba have proven that they're injury prone and just not consistent enough to be the 2 picks. So if you could get 4 from one team, I'd get all 4. I don't think there's a wrong 3 in there.
And obviously he comes on an assist, but does Saka not starting? Obviously, that's not the first time this has happened this year where he's come off the bench. Does that factor in for you at all?
Not a lot, because I think he's still so good when he comes in, and he comes in with those fresh legs.
Right.
And I just think you're in the middle of these festive fixtures. You got a lot coming at you consistently. I'm not surprised that there's a little rotation.
Yeah, this is just, to me, more smart man management than anything. It's like Pep roulette of old, where they have high enough quality starting players and bench players to where they're going to just rotate them because that's the smart thing to do. And I honestly wish more teams did that. and you're going to get hurt periodically when the guy you want doesn't start, but then he's going to be available for more games, and so he's a good asset. Like if he rests for one, but he's fresher and then scores in 4 as a result, it's probably better. Is kind of how I do that math.
Yeah. And just for like where we're at in the season so far, Rice is now the top scoring mid. Saka is the 7th highest scoring mid. Also, Bruno G, just random, is 3, which is crazy.
Couple hauls.
Yeah, a couple hauls. So good on us for having him, I suppose. Harry Wilson's also up there. So anyway, I agree with you guys, honestly. I think that's pretty right, although Rice on paper has 25 points more than Saka over the course of the season. I could easily see that switching in any given week. As much as it's been frustrating and the proof is in the pudding of Saka not having had hauls, I could see one next week and it really wouldn't shock me. So
it's
again,
almost like, they're just going to haul every week and you just got to hope it's your player, and that's the element of luck, because every single one of them is dangerous.
Does it make you guys, like, let's say you were on wildcard this week, Sharp, obviously you are in the position of having both these guys and then one defender. If you were starting new and you were like, all right, what's my ideal Arsenal triple up? Would you be on the double defense train still, or would you be double attack? I think I could see the argument either way, but I'm curious where you guys land on that.
Yeah, I would actually stay the same as where I'm at. Like I would have Rice and Saka. The only downside I would say at this point is I'm lacking City. So I am dodging like Cherki and Foden and those guys week to week. I can get into Cherki and I might do that. So that is still possible if I were to wildcard. But that would be like the one consideration. But I think you have so many good defensive options that I don't think Timber is going to be as big a differential as I would get like from Rice or Saka in the midfield.
I agree. I have double Arsenal defense and Rice. And that was more team specific than anything. I think I would rather, if I had unlimited money on a wild card, as per the question, go to Saka, Rice, and then Gabriel, because Gabriel is far and away the better defender, and then Rice and Saka, I think, have higher ceilings.
Yeah, I think that's probably about right. I could see you picking one of these two guys though and going Gabriel and like Timber, and that would also be fine. Yeah, I could see
it's ideal state versus like what's actually feasible for your team, right?
I think again though, like my thought process of that, I'm just playing devil's advocate because I probably agree with you guys, but the only reason to go the double defense route is because of those like 1-0 games that are super infuriating, where you might where either one of these guys returns or neither of these guys returns, and you get a Martinelli goal or some shit.
Then it's 12 points just for them existing. Yeah.
Right. 100%. Along those lines, is this what I'm looking for? No, it's this one. Yeah. So along those lines, looking ahead at the next few, Sharp, you mentioned City. I think earlier in the season, I was really gung-ho on Reinders. Obviously, like there was a certain point where I was like, oh, you got to have this guy because he's so cheap and he's starting in a City lineup. And right now that has transitioned to be the Cherki version. It's the same type of thing. He's a little bit more expensive. I think he's 6.7-ish. Yeah, something like that. So he's a little pricier for sure, but it does seem like kind of a hack, like to have such a high flying attack and have a player who's involved in that consistently and who's starting. I think the Pep Roulette is always just on my mind because we thought that Reinders was nailed for a long time there, and then suddenly he's not. And obviously, if you bring in Semenyo, that makes things a little bit more uncertain. So, yeah, I don't know. Where do you guys stand on that? And then obviously, some proof is in the pudding with you guys and some of the moves you've made. But do we feel like this is the end for Foden, or has he just been unlucky the last few?
He's just very involved, but he is just like low conversion rates is the problem. Like against Chelsea this week, he still had, relative to the rest of the team, like an okay XG. But I will say he's not hitting those quite same heights as when he was returning a lot. Like he was in the 0.7s, high 0.5s from an XG perspective. And now he's like averaging like 0.2, 0.4, 0.4. So I think that it is probably time to move off of Foden soon. But I think people might have bigger holes. And with how easy the games are, you don't need to rush it if there's a bigger problem to solve.
Yeah.
If he's 8.6, getting off him frees up a lot. So that would be my suggestion and why I did it. Like
if you had Saka and you wanted a Rice and you could do that, I would almost do that change, then go for like a lower priced city mid, like a Cherki or something.
Yeah.
I think so what do you have city wise now, Sharp?
Just Holland and Ruben.
And Mac, what do you have?
I have Holland and Foden.
Yeah. Okay. I think like having two of them, I feel like is, I would say, a must at this point. And I don't know I think pick your poison on what that two is. But again, just continuing to look at their fixtures, like they are insane for forever. Brighton, United, Wolves, Tottenham, Liverpool, Fulham. Then they hit Newcastle is probably their toughest one. And then Leeds, Forest, West Ham, like so that takes you through game week 30. So that's the next 9 weeks. So it just looks like a really good opportunity from both ends of the ball. And there's been some frustrations on the clean sheet side recently, but ultimately clean sheets are just kind of like that. Like the best odds you're going to have is like 40% in a given week. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it could be any of them. I'm interested in Cherki, and I think like a Foden to Cherki move is not a bad one. But at the same time, watching the game today, I'm like, Foden is still so like he could have scored multiple times in that game, and it would be a completely different narrative right now. So, I don't know. I feel like
one to rush out of, right? I'm agreeing with you. Like
for sure,
he was so involved watching the game. He was like in it.
It really does feel like, I don't think it's quite the same just because of all the routes to points that Declan Rice has, but it does feel like the Saka to Rice is the same as like a Foden to Cherki, where you're like, okay, is there a cheaper option that can be a coverage pick and probably match them, and I can use the funds elsewhere? So I suppose it's team dependent of where you need to go, but I would assume a lot of people are going to be looking to sell Ekitike at this point. So maybe money is really not an issue for anyone, and sticking with somebody like a Saka or a Foden is a fine hold. Yeah. Anyway, neither here nor there. Yeah. Where else do you guys want to go? Sharp, Everton didn't keep that clean. Suck it.
Wow. I mean, can I say something that's really sad though? Looking at this graph,
yeah,
where the expected goals in game week 21, Liverpool are third lowest, and that is just indicative of how that entire team looks and how bad their attack is.
I mean, they are playing Arsenal.
How good Arsenal is, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think
it's a combination.
But fair. Hey, we're on the poo-poo Liverpool train. That's fair.
No, but for that reason too, I mean, Ekitike being sore and then not playing, and how truly stagnant and disgusting they've looked, like I would not really own anyone in there.
Yeah.
So I would sell Ekitike.
Wait, did you?
No, but that's because I don't have enough transfers.
Yeah, I think, we're all in the same spot. We're all strapped for transfers. I think it's tough though, because Burnley are so bad. And if he, like we last week, Sharp, you were talking about, well, why would you sell Ekitike? Because he's the guy who's going to stick around. Yes, he sat down a game for soreness, but assuming that's a one-off, then like it's still the same formula, right?
Dude, did you see our attack versus Leeds? Have you seen Leeds defense? They hadn't kept it clean in like 3 months. And it was 0-0. So like I don't think Burnley is as enticing with this attack as we think they are.
Yeah, heard. I don't know. I think Burnley's pretty enticing, but I understand where your head's at for sure. And yeah, like I said, definitely a good way to get some money, be able to fund some other moves. I think from like a larger perspective of where you're going to spend the money, it feels too early to go to a player like a Palmer. It feels like in a couple weeks we'll get those AFCON guys back, and you might be. It sounds like Bruno Fernandes could be right around the corner, getting some minutes. So it feels like there are going to be needs for that money soon. So if you're making that move now, I'd be curious where you're spending it. Because in which case I'm like, I think you could keep him. I don't think it's like a bad idea to sell him. Obviously he's playing Arsenal this week, and I have him and I'm not planning on starting him, but I could also see the argument for keeping, because don't they have nice fixtures for a while after? Look, after Burnley, it's Bournemouth basketball game, and then it's Newcastle and City. So yeah, probably.
But then after that, it's Sunderland, Forest, West Ham, Wolves, Spurs, Brighton, Fulham. So it's a pretty solid run.
Yeah. So maybe a short-term sell. I don't know. I'm interested in the Burnley Bournemouth couple of fixtures for him, I think. And I think my plan is probably to hold him for that. But again, that's also from a perspective of what you just said, Strap for transfers. Is it worth a -4 to take him down to a DCL or what have you? Thiago, yeah, probably Thiago.
And like strapped for transfers, but not that strapped for cash, because if you get out of him, there's like no double premiums. So then you could just have every player in the midfield, I guess, that you want. But it's just, I don't know, it's the same problem we keep coming back to in this market, where it's like if you get out of one big player, there's no obvious guys saying, hey, pick me, who are worth a lot of money.
Right. I mean, let's talk Thiago really briefly, because obviously I know we don't want to. It hurt all of us, but at the same time, like he is, that is genuinely a dilemma. Like maybe we made the mistake on selling him. This is a guy who we thought maybe just didn't have open play threat. Scores 3 open play goals. I think they're all open play. And, now looks like an option again. The flip side of that is their fixtures coming up. Sunderland this week, then Chelsea, Forest, Villa, Newcastle, Arsenal. So a relatively tough run for the next. I mean, and Sunderland are pretty solid defensively. So really, out of those games, the good one would be Forest probably. But he also has proven that he can return in a lot of different games. So maybe he's just the kind of the Chris Wood of last season of like just play him all season. He's going to score. He's the attack runs through him. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he had 6 shots this game, 3 goals. So
Jesus,
high conversion ratio. He's averaging about 6 shots per 90. Or no, that's just for this game. Excuse me. Yeah, I mean, it was a crazy high return. Like he got a lot of service in the box, which is usually the biggest issue with owning him. But I don't know. I watched Brentford last week against Spurs, and it was so boring to watch. It was like Brentford 1 versus Brentford 2, so that didn't inspire me with a lot of confidence. And therefore, I'm not sure what has like changed, but I do think we can probably conclusively say that Ekitike has not been worth the money, because this is like this Fulham game and that Leeds game, that Wolves game were supposed to be the games that he's been supposed to do. And anyone who's hogging up almost 9 mil in your team and just playing and not getting returns isn't worth it. Like if you just play any other player for 2 million cheaper and they get 2 points purely for minutes, it's the same return.
And this week he didn't even play. So yeah. But yeah, goal versus Tottenham, assist versus Wolves, blanked against Leeds, and then sat versus Fulham. So definitely a tough go of things. Yeah. Well, I feel like we've covered most of the major things. You guys want to talk transfer plans?
I'm done.
Can you remove something so I can add the plus 2?
Yeah, I got you. You should be good.
Cool.
You sure you don't want to see a little bit more of this?
I really never want to see that man again in my life.
He's so annoying. I guess briefly we can look at this Gameweek 21. Oh, one thing we should talk about really briefly. Captaincy. Haaland has blanked 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
This can't be right. Why is Bruno even on this list? I suppose maybe they're projecting him to come back. That's interesting. Is there any temptation? I think for me, the only player that has a good enough fixture in my lineup would be Cunha playing Burnley this week. I don't think there's anybody else I would consider, but it does bring up, 3 blanks in a row from the mass captain.
I mean, you could look at Bruno G against Leeds.
Yeah, that could be.
Or someone in Newcastle. Or my boy Barry is playing the Wolves at home.
Dude, the road captaincy could go crazy.
I could be looking over there since Haaland is inspired, no fear.
If I think about play styles, I think that Brighton are going to get carved open like a block of cheese by Haaland. Like,
yeah, I think that's just
fair. Now that we've rounded the bend, do we know what the score was last time they played?
Not off the top of my head.
So he had 9 points, 1 goal, almost 1.5 XG by himself. It could be a City thing. Like, it doesn't seem like Haaland's getting enough conversions, but he even had a couple shots. He had 5 shots this last game against Chelsea, and Chelsea's just a much better team. I feel like Haaland's going to cut through him. I mean, it's one of those weeks where risk versus reward, right? Because like Acuna is absolutely a strong shout. And honestly, so I'm not gonna say Barry's a strong shout, but he's like a lowercase s shout. But it's always Holland, man. If he goes off against Brighton for 2 goals and Cunha plays like Cunha more often than not does, you're losing like 200k ranks.
Yeah, even though Cunha scored this week, as somebody who watched that game, I'm not captaining Cunha. It sounds fun, but there's no chance.
And like, who are you going to captain from Arsenal? Because you got Arsenal roulette. No one on Newcastle's consistent. Like, it's just a problem of not enough guys who are really converting this year. And consistent, right?
For sure. All right, Sharp, why don't you talk us through? I know you said you made some early moves. Hit us.
Yep. So I decided, because Verbogen. Wait.
Is this you?
Yeah, but hold on 1 second.
Should we go to Mac?
Yeah.
All right, Mac, talk us through it.
All right, so I had 2 transfers, and I made my transfers pretty much the second the Arsenal game played. And I took it for a hit, so I made 3 transfers. I did Raya out, Dallo out, Saka out, for Pickford in, Gabriel in, and Rice in. Yep. I know that the Rice to Saka move is sort of sideways, but I didn't love having Dallo. I just kind of wanted to get into Gabriel, and I said that for exactly the reasons we listed earlier, like Pickford, it feels like the Arsenal defense is back from like a scoring perspective, but they're still not keeping like rock solid clean sheets.
For sure.
And, there's been like a couple times in the past couple weeks where I've gotten punished really hard because Arsenal concede a later goal, knocking out the clean sheet for the players that I don't own. So to the point that like some of these center backs are getting subbed more. I just wanted to get out of Raya, and I thought that Pickford has actually put himself forward as a decent alternative, whereas earlier in the season there really wasn't one. So that was a pretty easy transfer. It gets me another Everton guy. I'm a little reliant on like Everton cleaning, but Pickford's thing has always been that Everton's not had a good defense, and he gets saves, and that's his main avenue to points, and I'm okay taking that risk in the short term. I think the other reason I did these transfers was just because I don't have high confidence in Dallo. He has not cleaned in sort of these quote unquote easier games that I brought him in for. So I said that was a mistake. Just going to take that one on the chin and just get in a better backline. And now my backline is Tarkowski, Gabriel, Chow, Timber, and Guehi. And I have 1.2 mil in the bank. So any move that I want to make next week, if I do, I can. I was looking at it. I can bring in Cherki if I want. I can get rid of Dewsbury Hall because I think my bench is a little weak having Guehi. I could fairly easy get up to a Thiago. I could drop Ekitike down. Like I have so much flexibility that I think in an ideal state over the next couple weeks, I'm just going to roll for 3 or 4 weeks to really have a ton of transfers and a ton of money for that like game week 24 shift without having to wildcard, so I can use my wildcard later once we have clarity. So that's my rough plan. That's why I went aggressive for kind of 3 Arsenal players this week, and ultimately what are sideways moves. But I just feel like now I have a more competitive balance of the players that I actually need, and it's easier for me to quickly move in and out of threats with my spare cash.
Yeah, and I feel like this is exactly what we were talking about with the Saka and Rice or Foden and Cherki. Like making that move, yeah, it's a sideways move, but those funds allow you to do whatever you want. Obviously, bringing in Gabriel is a relative priority. So, yeah. And that 1.2 you're talking about, you could even, does that give you enough to go you up to like a DCL or something? Not that that's necessarily what you should do, but I'm just curious if having that money now allows you to really upgrade.
Not a DCL, just because I think he's gotten so expensive. Yeah, he's 5'9" now, so I only have 5'2". But there is like potential to in 2 weeks or something take Guehi down, and then I could take Dewsbury Hall out and bring in like a Cherki and still have enough for like a 4 or 6 defender, and so I could get on these Sunderland guys for their fixtures. Like I just have a ton of flexibility. My ideal state would probably be rolling for the next like 3 weeks to have like a wealth of transfers and money to make moves, but rarely do I actually follow up on that. So
for sure,
we'll see.
Looking good. Ekitike versus Arsenal, I think is a fine play, honestly.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I should play him versus Arsenal or Guehi versus Villa, but I don't know. I can make that decision in a little bit.
For sure. All right, Sharp. Is this one better?
Yeah, no, what threw me off is that the fixtures aren't right, because Brighton have City next week. Like, those fixtures are off. So that's what was really throwing me off when I was looking at it. Because part of what I did was fixture based, but what I did, I had to get Gabriel in the way that he's been playing. So I did take a sideways move. I took Timber out for Gabriel. And again, that's because I think there are going to be a lot of strong defender options out there. Like I still feel very good in Tark and Ruben coming back with DEFCONs and or cleaning. Guehi, he's been strong all season. And Dallo, I'm keeping him because I brought him in for 3 fixtures. They were 3 really nice fixtures. So I'm going to hold him for these 3. And then next week, probably looking at Sunderland guy for him, bringing him down to like Mukiele or someone like that.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel like I had to do that yet. And then what that allowed me to do is take Dubravka up to Royce, best scoring goalkeeper in the league. And it allows me a little bit more of a rotation. So like Brighton having City this week, that basically, if I play him, he's getting 0 or negative points. Like I'm scared of that. And Dubravka was just not a viable option ever. So it felt like a good move to do that. And now I have a 4-8 and a 4-4 goalie that I can just rotate throughout the rest of the season and hopefully don't have to touch again.
Nice. You will not be playing at Ekitike this weekend?
No. Barry, they have Wolves again, not correct fixture showing, but
yeah.
With that, and he's now 2 goals in his last 2. I think my boy's getting hot. The boy's cooking a little bit, so he's coming in. Wilson does have Chelsea, so still scared of that. Even though he did return today, he still looks great. So I'm gonna be smart enough to move him to first on my bench in case anything crazy happens. But Ekitike, I have no faith in returning whatsoever against Arsenal. I mean, look at the first game. Look at our attack now and how piss poor it is, and then look at our first game, and it was so gross, 0-0. Like nothing happened until Sobo just hit a worldie. Like, there's no faith in us returning there. So I don't want to play him.
Heard. This is. I mean, you have such a nice bench. Like you have a lot of. You have no flags. You have no dead ends. It's sick.
No, I kind of like to keep it that way, but that is what caused me to leave 23 and 15 points on the bench the last couple weeks because you do have viable options, and then it hurts a little more.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean that's why Mac's not upset this week is because he had 3 guys on his bench who blanked. So he was like, I don't
can't be disappointed about your bench if you don't have a bench.
Right, exactly. All right, so this is mine. This is with a role in mind. Boy, is this right? Yeah, this is right. This is with a role in mind for this week. That's just the goal. I've taken hits in back-to-back weeks, so I would love to if I can. And it looks like on paper, barring injuries, knock on wood, there's nothing too scary here. It does mean I have to keep Ekitike, but I have the ability to bench him with a lot of players with good fixtures here. So this is where hopefully you got to think the Double United finally does something in this one. You got to think Dorgu, they at least keep it clean or something. Like, Jesus. So hopefully that works out for the first time. And then obviously the triple Arsenal versus Liverpool, same as you guys. But I mean, this is fine. Double Newcastle versus Leeds. And then being able to bring Garner in versus Wolves, which I still don't really expect a return, to be honest. But it is Wolves. So if there was a time to play a budget player, it's there. I could definitely also bring in O'Reilly versus Brighton for any one of these guys, and that'll probably be a benching decision that I make last minute. It could be Chow, it could be Garner, it could be pick your poison. But yeah, I'm okay with this team this week. So yeah,
you would bench Chow after what he's done for you? That would be absolutely crazy behavior.
But think about if I had said that to you last week, you would have called me crazy for starting him. You would have been like, dude, he hasn't kept it clean in how long? Yeah, exactly.
So you're right.
I do think, I mean, this is multiple times now where Chow has scored. So it lends itself to attacking threat. But it also, I don't know if you guys saw the goal. It the cross came in, it pinballed around the box. It hit 5 people and he just tapped it in. So I don't know if it's like Gabrielle level set piece threat. I don't, but so yeah, I don't know. Could argue to start him, could argue to start O'Reilly. I think it's notable that Vardiol went off with an injury, so in theory that makes O'Reilly's minutes a little bit more nailed going forward. But
how do you feel about your triple Arsenal being Raya?
Not great, but I don't think it probably is dramatically negative as it sounds like you feel about it. Again, if I was wildcarding, I probably would have Royce like you just did, but at double Arsenal defense, if I just stick to that the whole season, I think it's just a positive play, right? Would I like to have a different Arsenal defender? Like ideally that would be Timber and I'd have somebody else, but I don't know if that's worth the moves and the cost of those moves to actually make that change. So yeah, I mean, I don't love it, but he's still, it's not like he's a bad asset. It's not like he's like a priority transfer out. He's just not my favorite Arsenal asset, but I don't think, I don't feel like I'm missing out on too much.
Generally
So I'm
speaking,
okay
they'll rise and sink as a team too. Like if Gabriel cleans, that's because Raya cleaned. So barring a goal, you're losing out on 3 points.
Well, sure, except for last week.
Well, they're going to clean against your team, right? That's what you said.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. But if there is ever a team to score in the 95th minute when someone's been subbed out, it's also Liverpool.
Yeah, that's super fair. Yeah, when does Salah come back? That's his special.
Yep.
All right. So one other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, and then we can just close this up, is oh boy, I gotta remove this first. There we go. Is a little wildcard 24 action. So I know we were talking last time about potentially wildcard in 22. And I think this is specifically for my team. I'm sure it makes different sense for different people, but like this team is very playable for the next couple. Like I really don't have any reason. I have good fixtures kind of across the board, obviously barring some major injuries. I think the reason for 22 is that you look at these United assets that you invested in and they hit their tough run of fixtures. So that's a potential reason to make that change, but I don't know if as of right now, I would need that then. Same with 23, also just relatively fine fixtures. Again, assuming you can bench all these guys and you don't need some sort of substitute, but even then maybe it's worth a transfer. 24 though is like I said, when Chelsea get into that really nice run. So they hit where are they? Right here. West Ham, Wolves, Leeds, Burnley, 4 in a row. So that's just a lovely like time to get into it. And I think the main reason for thought process for wanting to potentially wildcard is just like a big shift in template and a big shift in like the style of team or your formation or what have you. So at that time, you got to think Bumo's back. Bruno's probably back. I have Palmer in here, but I think this could just as easily be Saka, and this could be a different City player. This could be like Saka and Cherki or something like that. This was more so just to see how different it could be. This also, though, obviously jumps to the 4-5-1 territory. And the only reason for that, like I'm not necessarily pro that idea. The only reason for that is when you get into 24, you start to look around at the forward options and they're not very good. Thiago, it seems like they're like, oh, he'll be Mr. Consistent, but they run into a pretty brutal set of fixtures in Villa, Newcastle, Arsenal, straight 3 off the bat. I think looking through them, I think DCL, it's the same type of thing. Leeds, it's Arsenal that week in 24, and then Forest and Chelsea and Villa and City. So the only one who maybe has like decent fixtures is Bowen, and West Ham are so poopy that's never like, you want those to be elite fixtures, not decent fixtures. Anyway, so by selection, this is where I ended up. And I don't know if this is actually where I would go, but just to show kind of like what that could look like at that time, trying to invest in the triple Chelsea. Obviously, you still have your triple Arsenal, getting the United mids back. Anyway, just interesting in that it could change the landscape quite a bit of having those players back that none of us really have at this point. So anyway, feel free to share thoughts.
I think I get your take on the fixtures, but aren't those guys all going to be back by 22 anyway?
Potentially. So I was looking at this today. AFCON, if they were to make it all the way to the finals, wraps up like right after or right before 22. So I don't know how that works, right? Maybe they give them a rest for a week. I don't know if they'd come directly back into the lineup. So yes, they probably come back in 22, but would they be it may be touch and go. I think by 24 you'd be sure. And the only reason as well, like let's say 22 you did want to make these moves, that's when, because a big reason for this genuinely for me is Bumo and Bruno, and in 22 is when they have City and Arsenal. So it feels like, you know, that's the time where you probably you could avoid those guys even if they are back. So that was kind of the thought process with, okay, once the United fixtures actually turn, you can invest in those guys that you're probably going to want. But I think you could also argue that it's not necessary to own United mids because they're so up and down and have been all year. But
I also think that there's a very viable path in the next couple weeks based on the ownership of a lot of the players that people already have to just get these guys without wildcarding.
For sure.
I'm not really certain on Palmer, and if he becomes like a definite, then the wildcard gains some steam. But if you're just trying to bring in like an Enzo, that could be a Rodgers out, that could be a Foden out, that could be like a Cherki out for fairly easy money. A Chalobah is similar, that could be a Guehi out.
Yeah.
That could be a second Arsenal defender out.
Yeah.
And if we acknowledge that the template is going to look relatively similar like this week, and everyone's going to have the same amount of players, and the only team that we're really jumping on is, in a big way, is like the guys returning from Man United and then Chelsea. It feels like, given their inconsistency, like one might be enough, and therefore you could just, I don't know. That's my devil's advocate position. I'm not strongly advocating like that. Like, I do agree that this is a sweeping change, but it just feels like, how essential is Mbeumo and Fernandes really? Could one cover?
100%. Yeah, and I think this is like, again, this is the classic like planning before it's time, because to your point, we could get there and realize, oh, we don't actually need all these guys. And this is more so just assuming, hey, United is back. You got Bruno and Mbeumo back. I think if you had both of those players coming in, it may be tough to make those transfers. Obviously, I have Cunha, so I could probably just do Cunha to Mbeumo straight up and then find some way. Maybe it's like a Foden to Bruno or something. So yeah, to your point, like, I don't think it's 100% necessary or something you have to go into, but I think part of my personal motivation is I just don't like the structure of this team. Like, Sharp, you were just asking me about Raya. Obviously, I have Cunha and Dorgu, who are like very short term and I would like to get rid of eventually. And then like having no Chelsea, I think, is the other big change starting at that time period, where in 24 it's going to be like you probably need to have double Chelsea, and whoever those two are. But yeah, I mean, so go ahead.
I get it. I guess my biggest thing is, if you're going to do this in 24, there's really no reason to not do it sooner. All that's going to happen is you're going to get price rises on you, because these are the guys that everyone's going to try to go for.
I mean, but you can't get in Bruno and Mbeumo right now, so you definitely couldn't do it now. Yeah, you could definitely get in the Chelsea guys, but I think the Bruno and Mbeumo is the ones that like you actually can't do that now.
They don't let you transfer back in during FCON?
What do you mean? Again? What do you can't get Bruno and Mbeumo right now because neither of them are playing. That's what I mean.
No, you can still transfer them in, can't you?
That's
why would I wildcard in Bruno and Mbeumo who aren't playing, Sharp?
In game week 22. So they're both going to be back. Like, I'm saying when they come back. I'm not saying do it this week. I'm saying there's no reason to not do it in 22.
And that's when they're playing City and Arsenal. Is
right. So you're benching those two guys anyway. So there's your two United that you're benching.
Sure, but if I wildcarded in and brought in two players that were combined 17.5 million, I don't want them sitting on my bench.
I think you would still feel the team just as good as the one you have out there, though.
I don't think so, because look, the guys on the bench are 4.5 and 4.2s. Like, it's not like I could just sub these guys in that week. So I think if you were going to wildcard in 22, that's a super fair timeline. I just don't think you would probably bring in Bruno and Mbeumo at that time. Or if you did, you would just say, I'm going to play them against City and Arsenal.
I also think that an unconsidered part of the wildcard 24 is strategy related to the second half of the season.
For sure.
Chips,
doubles,
and game weeks. And that is every single season a very make or break part of the season to get right. And you are giving yourself very little freedom for, in my mind, something that doesn't look like a huge shift. Like, a huge shift is when you find out that, oh my gosh, Arsenal now has a double against West Ham and Burnley in the same week.
Right.
And then like a blank. Or a huge shift is you find out, like, Holland, who was originally just going to play Liverpool, is now playing, blanking, and then having like
or he's injured or something,
blanking because they're playing each other in the FA Cup final round or something like that. And I also typically like to pair my wild card with a bench boost in the back half of the season, just to mitigate injuries. So if you can wait until there's like a huge tactical shift because of FA games, and then pair that with your bench boost, it just doesn't feel like now the guys you're bringing in are going to get you more points than being able to attack that later stuff more strongly.
Yep. Yeah. Heard. And I think the real thing with that too is it's not even like if an Arsenal had a double fixture. It's more so if like a random Fulham had a double fixture where you're like, shit, well, now I need to get a bunch of Fulham players that I definitely wouldn't have.
Or like a good free hit week or something like that.
Yeah, 100%. So that's definitely like the the biggest trade-off with doing an early-ish wild card. And the gamble would be at that time that there's enough players coming back who people don't have that you're getting a jump start, and that makes it worth it. But yeah, it'll definitely be something to consider around that time. So not something I'm set on. And I think regardless, my personal plan is to roll the next few weeks, and to Mac's point, if there are only a few changes I need to make around the 24 time, then I'll just do that with freeze. But
that's my plan too. Roll the next couple of weeks. I think the changes you brought up in that wild card draft are absolutely the players we'd want to target, and I'm hoping to just be able to do that on my free transfers in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, Chelsea's and Manchester United's are probably the big ones. Yeah, but you could keep like that. It's worth noting in that one I had one City. I just had Haaland. And like I said, those City fixtures are good for a really long time. So I think that's a good argument to not as well, is like those guys are going to be solid for.
Because we don't need Palmer right now, and that could change in 2 weeks, but right the second we don't.
I put him in there just to show how different it would be. I don't think I would probably have him. I think okay, so it actually was interesting though. If you're doing triple Chelsea, like, I don't know who the third one is. Chalobah, sure. Enzo, probably, but he's a little bit dampened by having Palmer around. João Pedro just really hasn't produced that consistently. I guess you could go Sanchez again. I guess you could go with a Reece James. I don't know. Like it's Chelsea, as much as like they are a high flying attack and have a lot of options and are a team that scores and is a top flight side. They're a top, whatever you want to say, 6 side or something. It's hard to find, like, they don't have as many key picks. And so if Palmer really was like back and producing at the level that he was, to your point, Sharp, a really long time ago, he'd be interesting. But yeah, finding triple Chelsea is not as easy as it seems. So that could also be part of it. If they don't look drastically better under this new regime too, that may be a good reason to not necessarily need to go there.
Exactly what I was going to say. I don't admittedly know anything about Strasbourg and how they play. And if you look at their table, they're 7th in their table. So, I mean, they could just not have great players. Who knows? But, they have a young, mid-30s coach with no top flight experience in, a Big 5 league. I am struggling to, on paper, see how that guy's going to make Chelsea better than Maresca did.
Yeah.
And therefore, I'm like, is Chelsea going to need to be in the conversation in a couple weeks? Because are they going to get better? Who knows? Maybe they will. Maybe I'll be wrong.
Yeah. I think regardless, even if they weren't looking as good, or we're looking kind of just fine, I think you're still going to want one for sure,
for cover,
probably 2 at that point, because of the fixtures.
Chalobah, right?
I think Chalobah's got to be the must.
He's the one,
and it could just be 2 defenders. What is it? Is it Fofana that is playing next to him that's really cheap? So you might be able to get cheap entry.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Anyway. All right. Anything else on Game Week 20 or ahead of an early deadline in Game Week 21?
Nope. Short week.
We'll catch you guys next week. Hopefully 3 greens as we come back.
But a big green for me specifically.
Sharp looks like he's gonna die on he's actually
so sad.
I think your color has gotten whiter as the podcast has gone on.
Dude,
someone kicked your puppy, dude.
Yeah, basically, it just beat me up this weekend. It laughed in my face. It was terrible. So I'm giving it the silent treatment.
I saw the Colts lost as well, just so you know.
Yeah, I almost mentioned that while we were on here because they kicked the game-winning field goal at about minute 25, and I was like, "Oh, Luke's gonna be happy."
Yeah. All right, we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for listening to the 3 Wanks FPL podcast. See ya.